talk about the rapture and Jesus' return, why y'all never bring up the part where Jesus was speaking to a group of people and he told them that that particular generation would not pass away before his return? A generation is only 40 years, and that's according to the Bible. So did we miss something, or never mind?
Yes, you missed a few things, because Jesus never told a group of people that he would return in their generation. If you're talking about what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 24 and Mark chapter 13 and Luke chapter 21, where he says, "Truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened," what you may be missing is that all these things do not refer to his return, nor the rapture. They refer to the signs of his return, which he warns them not to be deceived by, not to believe, because no one knows the day or the hour. This is why it's important to understand context when we interpret the Bible. The devil is in the details, but Christ is in the context. And interpreting the Bible correctly takes a good understanding of the context. If you think that Jesus said that he was going to return in their generation, then you may be missing all the things that he said before he said that, and all the things that he said after he said that, and how all these things are connected to one another. We can get better context if we read all of Matthew, all of Mark, all of Luke. Follow along with me as I highlight a few things in Matthew chapter 24 and interpret what Jesus said in its context. Matthew chapter 24, starting at verse 1. It says, "Jesus left the temple and was walking away when his disciples came up to him to call his attention to its buildings. 'Do you see all these things?' he asked. 'Truly I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down." The disciples and Jesus are by the temple, and Jesus is telling all this is going to end. And so it sparks a discussion and a question. Notice the question that they asked, starting in verse 3. "As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. 'Tell us,' they said, 'when will this happen? And what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?'" Notice they're asking not only about when the end is, but they want to know what signs they can watch out for. And so he tells them what signs they can watch out for, but he also warns them about how they interpret these signs. In verse 4, Jesus answered, "Watch out that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains." He's telling them, don't be deceived by the signs. Don't be alarmed by the signs. All these things, all these signs are going to happen, but it doesn't mean that he is returning. If they interpret all these signs as he's about to return, then they are being deceived. They would be missing something. Verse 9, "Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. But the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." Again, these are signs that are going to happen. He doesn't say when the end is going to come after those signs. Verse 15, "So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in the winter or on the Sabbath. For then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, "Look, here's the Messiah," and there he is, do not believe it. He's talking about all these man-made and natural disasters that are going to happen. And with that, people are going to say all this mess is happening because it's the end of the world. And he says, don't believe it. All these things must take place, but it doesn't mean that it's the end. Verse 24, for false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you ahead of time. So if anyone tells you, there he is out in the wilderness, do not go out. Or here he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. Notice how many warnings that he's giving to them about all these signs that they were not supposed to be deceived by. They were not supposed to believe. They're signs of the end times, but that doesn't mean that the end time is certain because of those signs. Verse 27, for as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there the vultures will gather. Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of the Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Now learn this from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that the summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things, you know it is near, right at the door. In part, he said, hey, when I come, nobody's going to have to tell you. You're not going to have to interpret these signs. You're going to know that I'm here. And in the other part of that, he's saying all these things, you're just going to know that I'm near, not that I'm here. Verse 34. Truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. All these things means that he is near, not that he is here. All these things refer to the signs of his return and of the rapture. They do not refer to his return. 35. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. Please notice his words in verse 36. But about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. This is in the context. After he just said that all these things will happen, he says no one's gonna know. He's not promising them that it's gonna happen in their generation. He's promising that all of these signs are gonna happen. And because no one knows the day or the hour, he also warns them and uses the example of Noah. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left. 2 women will be grinding with the handmill, one will be taken and the other left. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what time of night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. He's telling them, as much as you watch out for these signs, you need to keep watch. You need to worship while you wait. And you need to work while you wait. And it also will be good for you to witness while you wait. For me as a Christian, it may seem like I want Jesus to return as soon as possible, but I can tell you, I do not want him to return as soon as possible. If I was only focused on myself, then of course I want to meet him as soon as possible. But I know that there are people who are not ready. And so in God's patience and his good timing, I can wait. And while I'm waiting, I want to worship, I want to work, and I want to witness for him so that when he does return, more people will be ready. Notice what he says in verse 45. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his household to give them their food at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. Truly I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose that servant is wicked and says to himself, my master is staying away a long time. And he then begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with drunkards. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he is not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Listen, be warned against anyone who comes to you and tells you they know when he's going to return or when the rapture is going to happen. I am not saying that we should ignore the signs nor ignore the promise that Jesus will return. But I am saying what I think Jesus said, which is don't be deceived by them. Don't be deceived by people who say he's already returned, and don't be deceived by people who say he should have returned in that generation. Don't be deceived by people who say they know exactly when he will return, and don't be deceived by people who say he'll never return, because he will. And I hope you are ready.